So with uncertainty, if you look at life in general, we're uncertain about so many things. Everything is pretty much uncertain. There's no certainty. That's sort of absurd, as Voltaire said. And with uncertainty, what you're doing is you're comfortable with it in so many areas of your life. But in relation to your particular OCD fear, where it's locked on, in that thing, what you're doing is you're completely fixated internally. That's how we feel. We're completely internally chasing to ensure that that thing we need certainty on, because we have found in the past that when we've been able to obtain this sort of illusion of certainty on certain issues that our OCD may have been latched onto, it's released. So, for example, if you had a fear of HIV in the past, you may have got a result from a doctor saying that you're HIV negative, which then gave you relief. So then you started chasing that in the reassurance pattern, because you then believed, and were led to believe by the OCD cycle going off like a switch, that if you get that reassurance, you'll then feel better, and that's the goal, is to become more and more certain. Well, it's actually the opposite. It's about getting comfortable being uncertain. And then what we can often do is we start to feel relief with acceptance. When we start to feel a relief, accepting a worst case scenario, accepting something scary, making peace with that, breaking down irrational beliefs, we can sometimes chase internally too, getting that, I need to accept, I must understand this, I must get this thing right in my head, and then I will be fine. And that becomes an issue, because what we're doing then is we're internally chasing. Like I often sort of make the analogy of, it's like treading water internally in your head, where you're chasing to get relief, to try and get this thing solved. And that becomes the issue, that becomes the problem. So with acceptance, we need to work bit by bit at getting under fears. Like, for example, if I have a fear, and say for example now I had a some health concern, I could move to the worst case scenario and more likely than not accept it reasonably quickly. So it gets fully under it. So it never sort of latches with those really sticky OCD thoughts that sometimes say latch. Some will move around, but then we might have one that was latched for many years, locked in there. And with those, we often need to get under with a sort of deeper level of acceptance, so that we get under that. Often with uncertainty, it doesn't budge, something that I highlight a lot. For many years, I couldn't get that distance. I couldn't get into that that position of uncertainty. Sometimes I could, but sometimes a real event may have occurred. Maybe I had a genuine health concern, or something that was frightening, that was locked on. And when that thing was then locked, I couldn't say to myself, well, I'm uncertain, because I could see, this is actually true here. This is a real event. Now, obviously, false memories will mix up real events. So we'll take an event and then make it more and more, move it to where it wants to move it to make it scary. So if you're, for example, looking back in your life at when you did something where you could accept yourself if you were young and a child or something like that, it will keep moving the goalposts. So the second that you accept, I was 13, or I was 12, or I was 14, or whatever, it will say, no, you were 15, you were 16, you were 17, you were 18. And it's going to do that because it knows very much that what you're trying to do here is to get yourself so-called off the hook, when you're actually not. But initially, your concept of doing that is because you're like, well, if I was a child, then I could accept that. Whereas with unconditional self-acceptance, we get under it regardless of any age and see that humans have value regardless of what act was committed, a behavior, but you're never written off.